Most of you watching have game rooms that are already decked out with all manner of wall art, but mine is not. I've decided to take on the challenge of adding some art to my game room, and I'm mostly starting from scratch. There is no shortage of gaming-related posters, banners, or prints that I could choose, but instead I'd like to create something custom and unique. Unfortunately, I have no artistic skill to speak of. Instead of turning to Etsy for a custom design, or commissioning a piece from an actual artist, I'd like to instead do what I usually do, and that's to assess the tools I have at my disposal and figure out a way to use them to get my desired result. So many video games have iconic moments that are burned into our memories. In the same way I've used video game screenshots as desktop and mobile wallpaper, I'm going to bring some of these to actual paper to decorate my walls. I intend to create a series of frameable posters from video game screenshots to decorate my gaming space. On its face, it's a simple concept, but there's a lot to know to get it just right, so let me share everything that I've learned. The PlayStation 3 actually had printer options that you could use to print images from games that allowed screenshots, and it's only gotten easier and easier with more modern systems. Whether you use the system-level screenshot tools or explore a game's photo mode to get perfect images, if you can get your pictures off of the system, you can print them too. But before you load up a USB drive and rush off to your print shop, there are some unique challenges that come from printing video game screenshots that you need to be aware of. First, understand that regardless of printing method or medium, your paper prints will never quite match the vividness or vibrance of the same image on a lit monitor or screen. This comes down to a number of factors, including the necessary transposing between color models, differences in color production and how we perceive them, and countless other factors that I'm not fully equipped to understand, much less explain. Just expect that an image is going to look a little different on paper than on your TV. There are a number of standard print sizes, from photo print sizes to larger standard papers up to poster sizes of various dimensions. Adhering to standardized sizing makes things easier, not only for you to get your images printed, but to find suitable frames without the added expense of custom framework. But one thing you'll need to understand is how the aspect ratio of your chosen print size will affect how your picture is shown. Aspect ratios are a concept that some struggle to understand, so I'll try to break it down as simply as I can. Every standard print size can be described by its aspect ratio. That is the relationship of its length to its height. And in the US, which doesn't adhere to the A-series paper standard, there are a lot of different ratios to consider. Some are closer to square and some are more rectangular. It isn't the print size you choose that matters as much as its aspect ratio. This ratio will define and limit how much of an image fits the available canvas. Because aspect ratios have nothing to do with overall size, we can normalize these to the same height in order to see how their lengths compare. Contrast these to a modern HD screenshot. HD and 4K gaming typically produces images at a 16:9 ratio, and no standard print size has a ratio that matches or is similar to this. Even one of the wider typical ratios, 3:2, can't fit this entire screenshot. It helps to imagine your ratio as a cutout, a window into the world of the image. Using this as an imaginary viewfinder, you would need to decide how much and what parts of your image you want to have visible. As long as the most important parts of the image aren't at opposing ends, you should find a suitable way to crop it. Otherwise, you can force it all to fit through scaling. Just know this will introduce letterboxing or would require a frame with a custom mat, as these portions of your print have no other fill. Be mindful of these constraints as you compose the layouts of your screenshots. But I have a plan that will sidestep this problem. Standard definition games were made to display on a roughly 4:3 CRT monitor, and these will be the games that I'll be creating screenshots from. Doing this, I'll have many choices of print sizes that match this ratio, and even choosing a near ratio on either side will be close enough that letterboxing or pillar boxing will be minimal and insignificant. Classic 80s arcade games have never truly gone away, but they are seeing a resurgence in game rooms, with brands like Arcade 1UP helping bring this aesthetic home. Indeed, I'm choosing a few of these classic games to be the subjects for the poster series I'm creating. Thinking of some of the more meaningful arcade games that I want to surround myself in, many were originally presented in Tate mode. This means the monitor was mounted in the cabinet in its vertical orientation, as opposed to regular television's horizontal orientation. These screenshots are taller than wide, so I'll be making my posters in this portrait orientation, and for the sake of consistency for my poster series, I'll only be selecting games that match this orientation. For these classic games, I prefer to take my own screenshots instead of using internet image searches to find art. This way I'm assured to get a picture free from JPEG compression artifacts and at a predictable resolution. Most PC emulators assign a keyboard button for screenshots. Become familiar with how to take your snaps and where they are stored. My personal goal is to capture an iconic screen or action. For instance, the elevator stage in Donkey Kong is probably my favorite, but for my poster, I went with the more iconic girder opening level. I could make a series of posters just for Donkey Kong, a poster for each stage, but I have other plans. I want my pick to be as representative as possible, so I made sure there were a lot of different elements in it. There are many barrels raining down from above and fire barrels raising from below, Pauline yelling for help, and Mario in midair having just made a safe jump. I even wanted to ensure that Donkey Kong was facing right, releasing another barrel instead of facing forward or left. It took several tries, and it's tough to grab a screenshot while playing at the same time, but I eventually got one I liked. It may have been simpler to have pulled a frame out of captured gameplay video. I know this would have worked out fine in practice, but for the purposes of this YouTube tutorial, I chose simple screenshots captured in a lossless format to avoid the possibility of video compression artifacts making it into my final images. Though I want my pics to be as authentic as possible, I'm not above doing a little bit of digital manipulation. When trying to capture a Pac-Man pic, there are several random factors that made getting a good screenshot difficult. The power pellets flash, so half of my shots wouldn't show them, and several times I caught Pac-Man in the closed mouth portion of his animation cycle. That isn't very iconic. Once I had a pic I mostly liked, I touched it up in editing and gave Pac-Man back his more picture-perfect pose. After some consideration, I'm choosing to order all of my posters at 16 by 20 inches. This is on the smaller side for a poster, but it was a commonly available size from the print companies I used, and since I'm creating a whole series and purchasing frames, this was also a more economical choice. Now that I have an image set, I can upload them and have them printed, right? Well, unfortunately, there's a little more to it than that. These screenshots have a very low pixel density. Displayed at its native pixel size, this is how low res these games actually are when viewed on this HD screen. In order to get your prints to come out as perfectly as possible, I recommend doing all of the necessary editing, resizing, and cropping first, and only then upload the finished edit to be printed. Let me show you why this is important. All of the following instructions are intended for the free and open source GIMP program for PC, as it's my image editor of choice. Many other editors have similar options, but be aware the tools may have different names. I'll take you through the steps for this project, but don't expect a full tutorial. I'm still a relative amateur at editing, and I know there are usually many paths to similar results. If you have more experience than I and can provide further instruction in the comments, please feel free to help out. I like to start by making a new image at the final print size, in my case 16 by 20 inches. This will also be at 300 ppi or pixels per inch. This is a common resolution to use in printing, but at this size that's a lot of pixels, so it may make my underpowered system lag a little bit. I'll just be patient while working. You might find your chosen print company offers a downloadable template. If so, you could use this to start your design from. I want this to be a plain black background. Next, I'll bring in the image for the first poster, Donkey Kong, on a new layer. Obviously, we need to scale this layer up, but we need to take a couple of precautions. Even though the poster is 16 by 20, we'll want to leave a little bit of a margin around the outer edges, as they are subject to being cut off when the poster is trimmed to its final size. So instead of scaling this up to the full 16 inches wide, I'll only bring this to 15. This leaves a ½ inch margin on both long sides and nearly 1.5 inches on the short sides, which is a more than adequate safe area for printing. I've scaled it, and suddenly we can see our first problem. Our screenshot went from sharp pixel perfection to an out of focus mess. What happened? To understand what went wrong, you'll need to know about pixel interpolation. Instead of explaining that here, I've gone into more detail about this, and I have a few extra tips for you in an unlisted bonus video. There's a link to that in the description and end card. But for now, we just need to fix this. I'll undo that resize and try again, this time turning off interpolation in the tool options. Because this isn't an exact integer scale, there will technically be some pixel level inaccuracies, but at this resolution density, these flaws are fundamentally unnoticeable. But if you want to avoid non-square pixels at all costs, be sure to check out the bonus video for details of a hybrid scaling solution. Now that it's scaled, we have a chance to add some artistic touches. You are only limited by your imagination. But for my simple tastes, I simply recommend adding a small amount of bloom filter over the screen. It approaches the look of a CRT, and I find that in print, the bloom makes the color stand out better from the black background than without it, but the choice is yours. That seems pretty good for our first attempt. Let's export this image. As much as possible, I like to use the lossless PNG format when saving, but some print companies won't accept this file format. If you have to choose JPEG, be sure to pick a very high quality setting as to not add new compression artifacts to your work. That's a great first poster, but let's add some extra touches to the next one. For Pac-Man, I searched around until I found a high-res version of the original arcade marquee, so let's see if we can incorporate it into the design. Let's bring it in first and size it to the canvas just like before. I'll place this up near the top. Now for my screenshot. I'll bring it in and size it up, and in this instance, I don't seem to have room for both. But that's okay, I have another trick up my sleeve. GIMP has a list of distort tools in the filters menu. Make sure the screenshot layer is selected and look for the lens distortion filter. By tweaking these settings, we can emulate how it looked on a tilted and curved CRT, just like in the original arcade game. Adjust the main and edge sliders up. Leave the Shift X alone, but raise the Shift Y setting to shift the axis point of the tilt more towards the bottom half of the image. As the screen is tilted back, it takes up less vertical space, so it can fit in under the marquee. I don't have perfect settings documented. Just play around with these settings and the zoom slider until you get the effect you like and it fits in the remaining available space. A similar effect can be achieved with GIMP's 3D transform tool, but I like the curves the lens distortion adds. I can move this around just a bit, and there! I really like this composition, and I'm so pleased that one tool makes it possible. I'll add bloom to the screenshot, and I can export this one too. One thing you may know about me from my videos is that I like to explore an idea as fully as possible. Just as a test, I tried this marquee and lens distortion tool to make a similar poster on a horizontally oriented game, but it just didn't fit well in my available space. I was only able to make it look alright because I found a good picture of the control panel to even the picture out. So this method really works best with other Tate mode games. Now that I have these and a few other images completed, I just need to get them printed. So now let me talk about print companies for a moment. By using gameplay screenshots instead of key art or fan art lifted from the internet, I hope that I won't run into any copyright conflicts. Gameplay and performance is a distinctly gray area from a copyright standpoint, so I feel it's less likely to be considered infringing. But one time I was prevented from printing a Donkey Kong screenshot, so it all depends on the employee in charge. If you are ever denied printing due to copyright, please don't argue or debate the worker. They are responsible to prevent infringements, and they are doing their job correctly to the best of their abilities. You can try again another time or find an alternative print company. For photo and poster-sized prints, always search to see if a coupon is available. These savings are especially commonplace around family-focused holidays. I've paid as little as $5 per poster for this size, and I've never paid more than $10. I've used online and local printers, and I've been satisfied with each. Now that they're printed, let's take a look at the finished results. These will be fine additions to my game room walls. And here's Miss Pac-Man. And I like the addition of the marquee so much that I went back and redid my Donkey Kong poster, but this time I used all of the techniques I covered to add the original arcade bezel art. I hope you like it. And I did the same for Donkey Kong Jr. Well, believe it or not, this project isn't quite finished, so I hope you'll come back again so I can show you the next steps. This was a very explanation-heavy episode, so I'm glad you've made it this far. When I started getting into image editing and printing, I had to figure all of this out myself, so I hope this is helpful to your projects. Please like and share if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to see what's next. Thank you for your time, and take care.